Okay, aside from the color, this should look pretty familiar to you because we already know that Porsche made a number of changes to the car that pays all the bills in Zuffenhausen. We already drove one flavor of it, the one that people will buy. List the volume car. Now it's time for us to drive the one the engineers make for themselves. Now before you and I press on for the day, let's get some confusion out of the way. About 2 years ago, you and I drove the then new Cayenne Turbo GT, and that car was this exact color with those exact wheels. But for the avoidance of doubt, this is a completely different Turbo GT as evidenced by the front and rear of the vehicle, which was changed for 2024. But then the changes we saw in the Cayenne S that we already drove, the new or really revised 4-liter twin turbocharged V8, and some of the other bits, that doesn't make it to this car. This is effectively the same 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 we saw in the Turbo GT from 2 years ago. This is just optimized, shall we say, in that instead of 631 horsepower, they found 19 more horsepower, and now it's 650 horsepower. That does impact the overall performance figures. 0 to 60 on this. A Cayenne. You people know the size and weight of these vehicles. This is 3.1 seconds to 60. As a basis of comparison, that is almost 2 seconds faster than the already fast Cayenne S that has effectively a derivation of this engine. VMAX, 189 miles an hour, like you need it in a vehicle you're going to put the Rugrats in. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, this only comes as the coupe, so it is a 4-place seating package, and also for the avoidance of doubt, the change of the interior, where they have the new dashboard that's kind of borrowed from the Taycan, that is also part of this change to this Turbo GT. Now with that, before we jump behind the wheel, could you help me out? Hit the like button. You would be shocked how that helps widen our reach of these episodes. Wider reach means more access to vehicles like this. Are you ready for the wow? 5,055 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,293 kilograms. Now, as it relates to the 2024 Cayenne S that we already drove, that has effectively the same engine, a V8, it's about 200 pounds more with that. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. What has it been, a year and a half, 2 years? So, Jesus Christ, this thing is crazy fast. Santa Maria Madre de Dios. The way it delivers power is, holy crap, it's like your hair is on fire. Then there is the transmission, and they're not the greatest of news, but we already knew this. Cayennes, all of them, including this, the performance one, is a Tiptronic. Now, why is that important? Meaning it's not 2 clutches like every other Porsche on the planet. Instead, it's a torque converter, which it works okay, but the whole point is to maximize the towing, and somebody tells me the kind of folks that would buy a vehicle like this, I don't think they're going to tow with it. So perhaps as an opportunity on this already expensive vehicle, could we put a PDK in here? I know it will be hugely expensive to engineer it here, but this is a hugely expensive vehicle. It would also benefit the Urus and the Bentley, but I digress. This incredibly fast. Now, of course, that brings us to the obvious question. Do we notice the extra 19 horsepower out of engine calibration? To be honest with you, would you notice getting hit in the face with a brick as opposed to a 2x4? It's about the same experience. So you and I need to have a rather unusual come to Jesus discussion. Remember all the changes we talked about with the 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 that went into the revised Cayenne S, and how excited we were to have a V8 back in the S, replacing a turbocharged V6. Porsche, they didn't give us those 2 cylinders back because they're being nice guys. They gave us those 2 cylinders back because of tightening emissions in the Eurozone. Basically, if they had tried to update the V6, it wouldn't last very long on the market. They'd have to replace it anyway. So they made changes to the V8, and they were able to lengthen the life of that V8 without making changes. So now we understand the real reason why we got the extra 2 cylinders. This, not so much. They didn't change the V8 as much here, thus it doesn't meet Eurozone standards, which kind of reverses the polarities. You know how we talk about forbidden fruit, things like an M3 wagon, we don't get in the US, or an Alpine, we don't get in the US. This is exactly the opposite. This is only on offer in places like the US, or Qatar, or Saudi Arabia, or I believe even New Caledonia. But it ain't available anywhere in Europe. So you know how Porsche normally nickels and dimes us for all the chassis control options, as well as every other option on the planet? Not really the case here. This is much more about one cohesive package, so it only comes as PDCC, PASM. It even sits almost 2 inches lower than other Cayennes, and the idea is to focus on this thing being a performance vehicle. And that's why the only way to describe it, it defies physics. It defies all logic. Like, look at how fast and aggressively I am pushing this here. There is no intrusion whatsoever of any of the nannies. This thing just wants to be pushed, and pushed very hard. Is there a difference from when we drove about 2 years ago? No, there really isn't. But any opportunity to drive something this ridiculous and this stupid, this fast, I will certainly take. Now, something that's interesting about this, we talked about it being a torque converter automatic. That does play a role in the driving dynamics. You can't control the transmission manually as much as you would want to. Like this vehicle, it's screaming out for manual control of a transmission, only a way that Porsche could do. And here, yeah, I can control it, but notice I'm not really spending a lot of time controlling the shifts, because frankly, the engineers and the computer, the way they programmed it, it's better than me trying to interject with a torque converter automatic. And as such, my God, it is tuned, or I should say optimized, for this application. Is it something that stands in the way of saying, oh my God, a Cayenne is a piece of crap because they have a Tiptronic and not 2 clutches? No. It's only to this level of car where you'd say, what if we did something different? So a couple of things to point out. I've already told you this comes fitted with every chassis option as standard: PDCC, PASM, rear wheel steering, and air ride. So that's one of the reasons why this one is about 200 pounds heavier than the Cayenne S we've already driven. My guess is if you fit that car with the air ride, it's probably about the same weight as this. But notice, this is an air ride, but it's a 2-chamber setup. It's not 3-chamber like in the Panamera. Now, another thing that they did to change this, maybe not a huge deal, but it does impact the way you interact with it. The shifter is in a different place. It's like the Taycan, where it's this aluminum piece that sticks out from the dashboard, almost like a newfangled version of an old Buick shifter from 1974. And with that, the brakes. Here they are abnormally large. This is fitted with the carbon ceramic rotors, but even with that, in the front they're over 17 inches in diameter. In the back, over 16 inches in diameter. That is otherworldly. My first car, the wheels I think were 14 inches. Process that. Anyway, this completely supports or cashes the checks that the powertrain writes in this vehicle. There is never a time where you are without brakes, even a vehicle that has almost 7 inches of ground clearance and over 5,000 pounds. Did I tell you this is over 5,000 pounds? Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the options game with today's contestant, something I would refer to as the chef special within the Porsche Cayenne world, the 2024 Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT for a base price of built-in $196,300. To give you an idea of a basis of comparison, I believe the most basic Cayenne for 2024 is like 80 grand. So this more than doubled the price. What you are looking at is Arctic Gray. Yes, we do pay extra for that color, $3,150. I do have to point out, every single Cayenne Turbo GT I've seen is in this color. I don't know if they make any other colors. Then you will note the neodyme wheels, that is fitted as standard, as well as many other bits, things like rear wheel steering, PDCC, PASM. Then we do have to pay extra for some odd things. Black door handles, $350. The head-up display, which is magnificent because you can customize it, $1,490. Then, if I'm reading this correctly, this car has no other options. That is highly unusual for a Porsche. What do we have, like $50,000 in options on that 2024 Cayenne-esque? I'm going to have to check out with Porsche and see if they're feeling all right, because they never send cars to us with 3 factory options. Now, even if the Porsche gods have seen fit to bestow upon us a lightly optioned car for like once in a lifetime, we still have to pay extra for the destination not von Deutschland, rather Bratislava, $1,650, which brings us to a total retail price of $202,940. Being you and I already covered a number of the changes that came about with the 2024 Cayenne update in our Cayenne-esque episode, I want to share a personal story as it relates to this specific vehicle. You see, I have a 13-year-old nephew. Yes, I am biased, but the kid is a complete rock star. He is in the Civil Air Patrol. He's already had like 5 or 6 promotions. And he got into the Army-Navy Academy, the leadership boot camp. So it was voted that I would be the one that would take him down there, because he lives up in the Pacific Northwest. So he flies down to LA, and he's like, I really want to go in a Lamborghini. Loves Lamborghinis. That's the one part I'm a little bit suspect with him on. And his father calls me and says, whatever you do, no Lamborghinis. I don't want him showing up in some ostentatious car. So I booked this. Technically, it ain't a Lamborghini, but okay, so aside from personal stories, and this being a rather odd-looking yet understated version of an Italian performance car, what have we learned today? Well, this is still just as magnificent as the first version we drove a couple of years ago, but in a different carrying case. Then we get back to that whole forbidden fruit discussion. And here I believe I'm going to offend some of you. And the reality is you get what you vote for. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm simply trying to draw a line from think about your hot button issues and how many other things it connects to way down the road. I'm certain there are people in the Eurozone that didn't think, hey, my performance car that I have in my garage, I can no longer buy it. Which brings us to the whole wish list. And here, look at some of the technologies we've seen from, say, BMW and Mercedes, where they're adding efficiency to performance vehicles like this. And they're trying to do that to have an end run around very aggressive mandates on emissions that put cars like this out of business. Again, I'm going to offend some of you, and this is somewhat by design because I want you to connect the dots here. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode that I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, as a counterpoint to this whole episode, I would highly suggest you guys take a look at my BMW XM episode. Yes, many of you say, I don't like the design, it is ugly. But look at the execution of that vehicle and what it's trying to do in comparison to this. Go to that episode, which you can click on here, and put some comments in about what you feel about this versus the XM. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.